Hold on a second. We all know Marvel and DC are the kings of comics, right? They've dominated the industry for decades, but what if I told you there's a new challenger, a scrappy underdog army of indie creators who are doing things the big two can't, or won't? Are they just a flash in the pan, or is the comic book world about to change forever? Let's find out. First things first, let's get this one thing straight. What does it actually mean to challenge Marvel and DC in 2025? We're not just talking about raw sales. While that's a key part of the fight, a real challenge is also about creative buzz, cultural relevance, and fan enthusiasm. Why are indie comics suddenly making so many headlines and gaining momentum right now? It's a perfect storm of blockbuster creator-owned launches, massive crowdfunding successes, and savvy new publishers like Distillery attracting big-name talent away from the traditional work-for-hire model. Let's talk numbers. In the traditional comic shop market, Marvel and DC are still the undisputed champions, holding a combined 57 to 63% of dollar sales. Marvel alone often takes 37 to 40%, with DC hovering around 18 to 25%, although those numbers kind of pull and push in different directions depending on the time of year and whatever big events might be coming out. So where do the indies fit in? The largest indie publisher, Image Comics, typically holds about 12% of the market, with others like IDW, Boom, and Dark Horse splitting the rest. And while we might not see indie titles appear on the monthly top 50, it's an exception, not the rule. In 2024, only a handful of indie issues like Image's G.I. Joe #1 and IDW's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 even cracked the top 20. But here's the twist. The sales landscape is shifting. In the bookstore graphic novel market, Marvel and DC are actually fairly weak, collectively holding less than 10% of the market. And indie publishers are leveraging crowdfunding and digital platforms to reach new audiences, even if public data doesn't show them consistently outselling the big two in those spaces. The next point is where the indies truly shine. They are consistently outperforming the big two in terms of creative storytelling and innovation. Indie books are where you find the fan-favorite series in genres like horror, sci-fi, and fantasy. Titles like Something is Killing the Children and Radiant Black. And it's no coincidence. Many of the industry's top creators like James Tynion IV and Scott Snyder have either left or reduced their work at Marvel DC to focus on personal creator-owned projects. Why? Because indie publishers offer them full ownership of their intellectual property, a massive advantage over Marvel and DC's work-for-hire model. The creative freedom translates directly to fan buzz and critical acclaim. The 2024 Eisner nominations were dominated by indie comics, with titles from Image and Distillery and several others taking nearly all the spots for Best New Series. This is a clear sign of the critical respect indies are earning. Can indie publishers survive and thrive without multi-billion-dollar movie and TV deals? The short answer is yes. While Marvel and DC have massive multimedia infrastructures, indies are building sustainable business models in other ways. Companies like Image and Mad Cave are succeeding because they offer creator ownership, which attracts top talent. They also leverage unique advantages that the big two lack, such as flexibility and a focus on niche genres. Digital platforms like Substack and crowdfunding services like Kickstarter are also leveling the playing field, allowing creators to connect directly with their audience and fund their own projects without corporate gatekeepers. In addition, indie comics are influencing pop culture by exploring new genres and reaching underserved audiences. They're not constrained by continuity or corporate mandates, which allows them to tell stories that Marvel and DC simply avoid, like horror and war and more obscure themes. So which indie publisher is best positioned for a breakout moment? In this case, it's no surprise, Image Comics, as the largest indie, is a constant contender. But new players like Distillery are a real threat with a roster of established creators and a focus on creator ownership. Ultimately, the future of comics is likely not about a big three, but a more fragmented, diverse landscape. The indie publishers are not going to outsell the big two overnight, but they are carving out a space where creativity reigns supreme. So here's my final question for you. Is the future of comics a diverse creative landscape ruled by many, or will the big two always be on top? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're a Marvel or DC fan looking for something new, I highly recommend checking out Radiant Black or Something is Killing the Children as your gateway into the world of indie comics.